I was gonna try to not record today, but I literally can't stop. My therapist said I have a unhealthy relationship with doing this, but there's so much stuff that's going on, and just like in terms of what we want to get into, I have a Miami podcast, and the title of this episode is why Ohio State is actually a great matchup for the Miami Hurricanes. And obviously, I've heard a lot of Ohio State fans and Miami fans kind of talking a lot recently about, this matchup and who should feel good, who shouldn't feel good. It is funny because I think what's happening is there is definitely a certain, level of arrogance, I think, coming from both sides. I think the one side, the Miami side, is funny because I think at first it started off as we belong here, we want respect, and I think it's divulged into something much larger than that. And it's just progressed over time, right? At first it was we deserve a seat at the table, and then it's turned to y'all really aren't shit, and it's just a fascinating thing to kind of go to in that short amount of time. But this is Kane's insight. I've heard of this podcast before. I'm going to do category 6 as well, but the title of this episode caught me. Why Ohio State is actually a great matchup for the Miami Hurricanes. I'm going to link their channel in the description if you want to hear more of their stuff.
I'm Beck, and this kind of transition from Texas A&M to Ohio State. The way he played in the Texas A&M game in those conditions, and then what you think he might need to do against Ohio State in a dome against a better team to win that game.
In my opinion, I think if you come out and you think that what he did in the A&M game is who he is, or he can't throw the football, you're going to be in for a long day. You're going to be in for a long day. When I watch Ohio State, they're not really a heavy blitz team. They pretty much play very head up, right? They like their guys up front. They like their front seven. So I think A&M had a lot of exotic blitzes, a ton of pressure at the quarterback.
Is that true? A couple things. I don't think a lot of people are pulling away that's who Carson Beck is. What people are waiting on is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Carson Beck, the one that can throw you out of a football game. I mean, I think everybody knows he was a better thrower than he showed in that game. The issue for him is the more he drops back, the more some of those decisions look really questionable. But I don't know, it's funny because I think that he's not anticipating Ohio State to blitz all that much, but Matt Patricia. Well, I don't have the overall blitz numbers in front of me, and I should. Matt Patricia does the thing where if something works or if a quarterback has put something on tape, he's going to do everything he can to make that guy uncomfortable. Kind of at a crazier degree than most other DCs. Obviously, DC's jobs are to make guys uncomfortable, but when it's time to blitz, we've seen him, bring Arvell Reese. When it's time to blitz, we've seen him send corner blitzes against Grambling. We've seen him kind of nameless, faceless, go try to finish guys in a way that I think is maybe being undersold here to start, but I also haven't let this guy talk at all. It just kind of threw me for a little bit.
Back, that's their identity. Ohio State is really not that team. And I just think he'll have a lot more time. And I'm just seeing a lot of quarterbacks that they've played, and a lot of them haven't been good, to be honest. And some of them had some time back there, clean pockets. So I just think, in my opinion,
I will say this just real quick. I don't think this is disputable. Arch Manning is a better quarterback than Carson Beck. So is Mendoza. And also, Ohio State, I believe at one point, 8 games in, led the nation in pressures without sending a blitz too. So confusing the blitz thing, maybe they don't send a lot of blitzes because they haven't had to. They do a lot of simulated pressures, create some confusion, and they have freaks outside. But I think this idea that Team A doesn't blitz, meaning Team B is going to have time, I think is you're skipping a layer there. But I'm not here to critique. I'm sorry. I gotta lock in.
Beck coming in, I think he's gonna have a very good game, and I'm just saying that just off how A&M, Ohio State plays their defense and their structure is similar to ours as far as how they use their safeties in the passing game. Caleb Downs is a lot of time how we use Jacoby Thomas in that lurker, middle of the field kind of guy sometimes in certain packages. If you want to get a better idea, just watch us how we played NC State. That's kind of how Ohio State traditionally kind of played defense, schematically wise throughout the year. And I just think they don't. I don't think they faced a team with the trenches like we have all year long.
I think that one's fair. I think it's fair to say that like Miami might have the best trenches they faced this year, but I think the idea that like they kind of just play you upright and kind of just like our guys are better than your guys, while it is partially a compliment to our guys. I'm old enough to remember Sark saying like some of the stuff they're doing to disguise what they're doing is some of the more complicated stuff. Like it's elite, like it's some of the most elite stuff. And like think what you will about Sark, what Sark's always been, it's like a great offensive mind. So I think like sentences like that make me maybe think that like this gentleman in particular is maybe underestimating kind of some of the stuff that Ohio State does, but also like his audience is like Miami fans, like like, and he's a Miami fan too. Like no one wants to get up on a show and like talk about, oh yeah, like it's about we're gonna have to play absolutely perfect to beat them. You know, our quarterback's gonna be up for a huge challenge. It's like a lot easier to like take the other route, and it's like easier to receive, I guess.
A team that's willing to go to war for a true 4 quarters. I don't think I'm trying to tell you, I don't think they've seen it. And in my opinion, every team we've played so far, like obviously A&M being the most recent one, I don't think they realize the type of monsters we have until you actually see them in person. When they take the field and they're lining up right in front of you, I think that's when reality kind of sets in for these guys. And they're like, all right, Ruben Bain looks a little bit different in person. On film, he might look like a 6'2", overweight DN, whatever you want to say, or troll.
I think you could say the same thing about Ohio State players.
But when you see him in person, I think it looks different. When you see, Justin Scott in person, it just looks different, and the mentality is different. And when that first snap is, they go like that, I think they feel it, and I think teams' game plans kind of change. Like, hold on, like these boys aren't just like some old Miami team that would have like 6'2", 260-pound offensive lineman out there. That's not the case. When you see Markel Bell 6'9" out there and he actually can get in the damn stance and squat, I think it changes things a little bit for the opposing team.
And it's hard to, just looking at Ohio State a little bit, it's hard to really make assumptions just based off of the schedule because, look, I give them credit for beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, how they're supposed to beat them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really running through a lot of those Big Ten teams. The Texas game, they won the game. It was a home game. It's week 1. I don't want to devalue it because we were doing the same thing with Notre Dame and the importance of it, but that wasn't the Texas team that we necessarily thought it would be throughout the year. But
a Texas team that's better than the A&M team, I might add. Just want to add that real briefly.
You lose to Indiana, the only team that maybe even gives you what you're talking about here, Amon, which is really strong, well-coached trenches. And I think I like Miami's bodies lined up against what Indiana's bringing to the table. If I'm going to tell you the truth, so
yeah, I don't think they faced like 2 edge rushers or just a front 7 like we have. I just truly don't think so. Like they haven't faced a number 1 and arguably 2 DN in college football. They haven't really seen what that's like for 4 quarters. I mean, we've seen what they're like when Julian Sand is sacked 5 times, they lose a football game. We've seen that. And just if you just look at who they played, and I know their defense, like statistically,
I was going to say, I will say, I don't think we've seen a defense like that either. I'm going to give them that.
I am glad that he said that. I think honestly that's where I get irritated, like when a show, because it's fair. Like Ohio State has not seen a team like Miami. They probably have the best group of athletes, but also like they're not as good as the Indiana defensive line in terms of like schematics and like what Haynes does to like create like miscommunications. But I am glad that he kind of stepped in because like Miami's good. And, they haven't seen a team on the field, like in a game that counts as good as them. But, like, the Ohio State defense is better than the Miami defense, and they see them every day in practice. And I think, like, moving through this and not acknowledging the Ohio State defense would have been a mistake. And honestly, that's probably why, like, I noticed a lot of Ohio State fans have been very turned off by some of the quote-unquote ego, I think, from some Miami personalities, which, I mean, like, I get, and also – Twitter's not a real place. Some of the stuff I've seen on Twitter is absolutely fucking insane. But here, this feels like, your baseline respectable fan like show.
That credit there.
No, that's fair. No, 100%. But when I'm looking at like their statistics and they're like number 1 in the category, and then I go look at them playing the backup quarterback at UCLA, they're playing Purdue. I don't even know who the hell their quarterback is. Like, it's very easy to like
rack up some of those numbers
ranked that way when you're not really facing anyone that can threaten you down the field or a quarterback with the type of experience Carson Beck has, and then when they did face someone with the pulse at quarterback and some weapons out wide, we seen what happened there. I mean, so like I said, I think they're a really good team. I just think they're a little bit inflated as far as like their like resume and their team overall. I just don't know if they've been tested. They've been sent home for about a month. They've been feeling themselves. They're number one
They
in the
were
nation.
tested. They were tested and they lost.
Oh yeah. I mean, so that kind of like tells me like a little bit more of the picture. Like, what did you do when you actually played someone with a pulse? How did you look? How did the trenches look? Right? We talk about how did it look. And when I see a receiver number 80, I think he was a former walk-on, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, when I see him out there going for 100 yards or two receivers almost over 100 yards, it just kind of tells me I don't think your secondary has really been tested.
Okay, we're gassing it a little bit too much. They scored 13 points. An offense that averaged 45 points scored 13 points. Yeah, Charlie Becker had a good day, but like I think we're gassing it a little. Gassing it maybe a little bit. But I guess we're gonna fact check it or data check the offense thing, because I'm just generally curious where I guess Miami's offense, ranks in terms of like who Ohio State's played.
The way you guys are, the stats are saying. And I went back, I watched almost every Ohio State game. I mean, their offense, obviously the box score at the end of the game is one story, but when you watch their like actual games, I mean, at halftime, you're talking about scores of 7-3, 10-3. Like, we're not.
Okay, just real quick, since he did bring up like maybe the defense is inflated because of the offenses they faced this year, just real quick, if you look at total scoring, if you look at scoring offense, and I'll do total offense in a sec. If you do scoring offense, Miami is number 29 in the nation, and that's below schools like Washington. That's below schools like Indiana, obviously. Like I'm saying, like they're a worse offense statistically than a Washington this year. So it's like, yeah, like, you want to talk about like guys not being very good or quarterbacks not being very good. I think that's a little bit I think it's a little silly a little bit. And it kind of takes away from certain things. But yeah, I guess maybe I mean, Washington might be the only top 30 offense that they face in terms of scoring offense. But Washington's offense is better than A&M's offense.
It's not as explosive, man, as I really think people understand. I think they're a team that when it gets like that third, fourth quarter, and it's time to like kind of step on the snake, cut the head off, like they do it over and over again. Like that's what they're great at, like putting the nail in a coffin. But if you can eliminate explosive.
And then here we go. We look at total offense, like Miami's 34th. So I guess like this idea that because Ohio State struggled with Indiana, who by the way is top 10 in both those categories, and that like Indiana kind of showed the path to like expose Ohio State, I think that's just a silly debate that would be easily like discounted. I mean, again, if you look at this, like, total offense yards per game, and obviously like that can be skewed by a number of things, but Miami being there at number 34, like they're below schools like Duke, below Toledo, below Cincinnati, below Boise State, below Virginia. And obviously that doesn't tell the whole story. And when you blow teams out, you kind of ease up a little bit, but they weren't really easing up kind of late. So, but they do, honestly, they play more of a more methodical style of offense than I think their own fan base would want to admit.
Plays, like, because I don't think they run the ball well. When you limit those explosive plays, you're in for a good game. Putting the nail in a coffin. But if you can eliminate explosive plays, like, because I don't think they run the ball well. When you limit those explosive plays, you're in for a good game. We just saw that.
I think that's a crazy underestimation. I think Ohio State runs the ball, especially back half of the year, far better than he's suggesting. So just, it is what it is. But I think that's kind of okay. Like we'll see. Obviously, like they ran the ball really well late in the year, and obviously, like it's who you met me as. It's not who you met me as. It's who I became. So, but okay. I mean, maybe that's fair. Maybe it's earned.
All that with Indiana.
Roosevelt's asking anywhere.
You're in, like, because I don't think they run the ball well. When you limit those explosive plays, you're in for a good game. We just saw that. We just saw that with Indiana.
Roosevelt's asking any word on CJ Bailey yet. Roosevelt, I promise you, if CJ Bailey jumps in the portal, we'll be covering that live like the OJ trial. Man, we've been talking about CJ Bailey every show. Trust me, you'll know if he jumps in the portal. But on Ohio State, yeah, it felt like their ends. I don't know if you saw this, Amon. Like their defensive ends, they can get after. They get a lot of sacks, 97 and then 92. Right, the two
Curry, yeah,
Curry. They get after the pass, but you can run at him a little bit. We saw that in this game a couple times. They ran at Cassius Howell, who's like he wants to get after the passer, and then Malinois is knocking you back. It's a different animal. You think there's some vulnerabilities maybe going straight at these guys?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I trust Francis out there. We got him at right tackle, literally the best right tackle in college football. Then you look to the left, Markel Bell, who is probably coming back. But I mean, you just seen what he's done at a high level when these top end edge rushers or whatever you want to call them, he's faced. I mean, he's holding his own. Then we talk about
Just real quick, I know that there's like a heavy love for Ruben Band right now, and he's gonna be, he's gonna be really fantastic, like a little heavier. But if you look at him and Caden Curry, Caden Curry's got 11 sacks to his 7, got 36 tackles to his 23. So yeah, like Ruben Bain might be a better NFL prospect, but he talked about like guys getting on the field and like looking and feeling different. I think Caden Curry is the exact thing that he described Ruben Bain as. Like Ruben Bain is not overlooked by anybody. I think Caden Curry is overlooked by a lot of guys. I mean, for someone to have 11 sacks and not being respected or talked about at all during this whole process, I think it's just funky, and it's like, okay, like I got it.
vet players like, Nez Cooper and obviously, we got what's his name? Cooper.
Cooper Pancake.
Yeah, Pancake, that kind of rotation. I just think people don't understand like how good we are up front when we're not predictable. There's a difference. When we actually aren't predictable, we're very, very good up front. Obviously, when we come out with the vanilla game plan or whatever, and teams are able to just tee off on us, and then it's a little bit harder for those guys to be successful. But when teams are playing us head up and honest, like I've seen this movie, man. Like I've seen Notre Dame, I've seen the Floridas of the world, A&M. Like that's our style of play. Like if they want to play like that, honor the, play head up. I'm telling you, man, it's gonna be a long day. So they got guys over there, and we got guys as well, and that's the part I like about our chances.
That was a lot of confidence, and it's funny because I've listened to a couple Miami podcasts. A lot of them are still like sell like the euphoria of beating A&M, and I have talked to a lot of Ohio State people who like are really irritated by kind of the confidence level, and that that's like naturally like going to happen. We're going to save this one for another video. I appreciate you guys. Obviously, like, I wasn't going to record today. It's my birthday. I was going to take the day off. Going to take tomorrow off as well. But, like, have this, like, strange obsession with it. And it's so funny because, like, I cover, like, sports. Like, a lot of people have, like, this strange obsession. Like, not athletes have a strange obsession with, like, the sport they play and, like, getting better. And, of course, like, I'm the podcaster with the obsession. But I do appreciate you guys. You guys have made, like, my 28 year really awesome. And I'm excited to, like, pump out more content.